Hello, Census Partners. Welcome. Thank you for joining me today at 10 a.m. on January 29th. This is a presentation. It's going to go everything about the census. And I want to ask that everyone continue to ask questions throughout this presentation. I will take some breaks to answer any questions that people might have. We'll also take a break about halfway through the presentation as well. I want to note that all of these slides will be distributed to the group after the presentation is done. So the agenda for today, I'm going to do a quick introduction of who I am, a census overview. We're going to go through the 2020 census online portal. I'm also going to show everyone the paper-based version of the census form. We're going to talk about who we miss in Minnesota, impacts of an undercount and preventing an undercount, tools for our complete count committees and our census partners, which is everyone on the call today, and then some conclusion and question and answer. So a quick introduction. My name is Rachel Dame. I'm the project manager for the 2020 census with the state of Minnesota. I'm originally from North Carolina, so as you can see on the screen, we have a barbecue map. The most important thing to know is that tomato-based barbecue is by far better than vinegar and pepper-based barbecue. I moved out here for graduate school at the University of Minnesota, and I say that I traded it in, barbecue in for hot dish. So I consider myself a Minnesotan now. I've survived 3 winters. And I've always been inspired by how policy works within this state. Who do I represent? So everyone on this call today is from a different community. I represent my own community, my own neighborhood. Therefore, I'm best to speak about the census to my friends, family, and community members. This year, the census is all about trusted partnerships and trusted messengers. So you represent your own community, and we want to provide as much information as possible so you feel comfortable going out there and talking about the census. I also say that I don't represent a Minnesota snow driver. So that is my car. The car to the right of me is on flames. And I just want to say this is 2 inches of snow. I have made it to Staples today where we're filming, and so I'm a better driver in the snow now. So a quick census overview. This is going to be the history of the census in 30 seconds. So the census started in 1790. That was the first census. In Minnesota, the first census was conducted in 1849. If you don't know already, Minnesota became a state in 1858. And then in 2010, we had the short form only of the decennial census. Decennial census every 10 years. Before 2010, some households would have a long form census, which asked questions about their job, their income. That was stopped in 2010, and now households only receive the short form version of the census. The long form version of the census happens every 2 years with the American Community Survey. And in 2020, it's even more unique as this is the first time we have a digital-based version of the census. So about 80% of households in Minnesota will receive an invitation to respond online. 20% of households will receive a paper-based version of the census form. I'm going to share a map with everyone in the follow-up message. It'll show the districts across the state of Minnesota that are going to receive paper-based versions of the form or an online version of the census form. Now, key dates for the 2020 census are March 12th between March 20th is when the first invitation to respond online or paper-based version of the census is going to be distributed to every household in Minnesota. Now, I'm going to show everyone an example of what the invitation to respond online will look like. Now we have following that, March 26th between April 3rd is when the first and second reminder letter is distributed to households. These reminder letters are going to say something like, hey, the census is here, make sure to fill out your form. Have you answered your census form? Now, if you answer your census form in the initial grouping, say in March 12th between March 20th, you will not receive any further communication from the census. If you happen to receive a letter in your mailbox, no worries, feel free to disregard that letter. Now, April 1st is the official census day. By the official census day, the census is looking at where are people living on April 1st. If a baby is born on April 1st, they are counted in the 2020 census. Now, April 8th between April 16th is when the third reminder letter will be distributed to all households. After that, a paper-based questionnaire will go to every household that hasn't answered their census form online yet. So if a household would like to answer their census form via paper, that's fine. It will come to their mailbox eventually. Now, April 20th through April 27th is the final reminder letter from the census. This is the last reminder before census workers enter the field. At this point, we will know our response rates across the state of Minnesota, and we'll share that information on our website and with all of our partners, so you can see what the response rates are for your counties, cities, townships, or anyone in your community. I also want to note that if you are interested in forming a complete count committee, I'll talk about that later on. You are eligible to apply for a mini grant. That mini grant is $750. Now, if you are a mini grant recipient and then you are working in a community that is historically undercounted and they have a large undercount around April 20th and April 27th, you will be eligible for grants up to $5,000. The state of Minnesota is going to distribute this funding, but it's only mini grant recipients that are eligible for this additional pool of funds. And we have over 200 grants still available, so please apply. Now, census workers will enter the field April 28th until late August. The census is going to try to reach a household 6 times, about 3 times door knocking and 3 times with phone calls. Now, door knocking is obviously more effective because you're able to speak to somebody face to face. However, phone calls is a method that the Bureau uses. Additionally, it's important to note that if they aren't able to reach a household, they might go next door to the neighbor and ask about who lives in the household next door. They might go to the landlord and say, do you know about this tenant? So the census is going to try to reach a household up to 6 times during that period. So types of census forms and enumeration. The short form, which is the most widely distributed census form, this is what the majority of households will receive in Minnesota. We have the group quarters form and enumeration. Group quarters are any unit that is rented out per bed. So if you think of an assisted living facility, it's a per bed rental rate instead of a per unit like an apartment. And that's how group quarters is considered in that method. And then we have enumeration for Native American reservations. So there are 3 different ways to respond to the census. You can respond online. All devices that you are using to respond to the census always go to 2020census.gov. You are going to be able to find the online official form via this website. You can respond on the paper form, or if you would like to respond over the phone, that is a possibility as well. If you would like to request a paper-based version of the form earlier, before that April date, you can do that by calling the number and asking that they send the form to your household. Now, if you decide to respond to the census over the phone, that's fine. You will speak to a real individual. It will not be a robot that you are talking to. Now, all 3 of these methods are given in 13 languages. So right here on the screen, this is what the invitation to respond online looks like. So as you can see, the invitation contains your unique census ID. This is a 12-digit code that is connected to your household address. So if you're using the paper-based version of the form, you'll notice that there's a barcode on the side. That barcode is tied to your household address as well. The census is counting people via their address. The URL, the unique URL, it's been removed from this invitation, but like I said, always direct people to 2020census.gov and they will be able to find the official 2020 census form. So right here on the screen, this is what the invitation to respond online looks like. Now, I'm going to say it again, but I want to always encourage people to go to the correct website. I will say this website is available on all internet browsers such as Internet Explorer, Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Samsung, Apple. So it's available on tablet, computer, phone. Now, if you decide to answer the census form online, this is what the portal will look like. This is your landing page. At the top of the landing page, you'll see the various languages. English is listed first, Spanish is listed second. If you would like to take your census form in Spanish, that's fine. You would toggle over to the Spanish tab, click on it, and everything would change on this page. If you answer the census form in another language, you will respond in that language as well to type in your answers. On every page, there will be a frequently asked questions tab at the top and instructions as well. So let's get started and we'll go through the questionnaire. So the first part of the online portal is going to ask for address verification. So here you're going to be brought to the address verification page. You can see you want to enter your 12-digit census ID. This is going to be found on your invitation to respond online. You want to note those invitations start going out March 12th. Now, if you did not have a unique census ID or somebody threw out the invitation to respond online or you received a paper-based version, that's fine. You can click here and say you do not have a census ID. If you do not have a unique census ID, you will be brought to this page. It's then going to ask you to enter your address, and that address is going to be tied to your census. If an individual does not have an address, I'm going to go back one slide, you'd click on the button at the bottom that says, I do not have a street address. You'd then be brought to this page, which will ask if this individual is experiencing homelessness, yes or no, and then it asks the individual to identify the city, state, or zip code where they are living at the time. The reason they're asking for this information is they're trying to identify the census tract where that individual is living so the resources go back to the correct community. Now, just to make note, census tracts are combined of multiple zip codes. It's another way the census de-identifies the data. But by listing the city, state, and zip code, they can accurately see where this individual should be counted. They also ask the individual to list a park or another area of the city where they might be living. If you do decide to enter your unique census ID or type it in, you will be brought to this page here, and it's just going to have you verify your address once more. As you can see, this is a test site, so that's why the address looks a little funky on the screen. And then it's going to prompt you again and say, on April 1st, 2020, are you living at this address? April 1st is the official census day, so we want to capture where is everyone on April 1st. However, you should always be counted where you live the majority of the year. So if you're staying on a friend's couch on April 1st, if you're a snowbird and you're living in Florida or Arizona, but you stay in Minnesota the majority of the time, you should be counted in Minnesota. Or if you're in a college dorm and you live there 9 months of the year, you're counted at the dorm, not at your parents' household. So that's why it's asking on April 1st, where will you be staying? Then we move into the household questions. So this is step 2. With the household questions, there's one person for each form that answers for the entire household. So I have 3 roommates. I would answer the form for all of my roommates, including myself. The person that answers the form for the entire household, this individual is called the reference person. And they ask for the reference person's phone number, as you can see, in case they need to call and ask a question about the form. Now I'm going to show you an example of an instructions pop-up box. Oh, well, it's on a later slide. But I want to show you again that there are instructions there in case somebody had a question about the reference person. And then after that, you will be brought back to the dashboard and you can see we would start the household questions. So household question number 2 says, including yourself, how many people will be living or staying here at this address on April 1st, 2020? So for this example, we'll say 2 people will be living or staying here on April 1st. This is what the help pop-up box would look like if you went to the instructions tab. So it says college students who will live away from this address, they should not be counted on the form. Individuals in the armed forces, they are counted in the census, but they should not be counted in your household. People who are incarcerated, please don't count them on your form. And anyone that lives or stays somewhere else. So if you're on vacation in California during April 1st, you should not be counted there. You're counted here in Minnesota. So it just provides additional information on any of the questions that the census might ask. So Jane Smith is listed as the reference person. Jane would then enter the other individuals living in that household. There's also the option to add another person, even though we said there's only 2 people staying in the household. This is another way the census makes sure that we are counting everyone that's in Minnesota and everyone that's in that household. So Jane Smith, and then you can also add that additional person. I want to say if you guys have any questions, please feel free to type them in as we move forward, and I'll answer them as they pop up on the screen. So it also asks, were there additional people that you did not already list? Another way the census is making sure everyone is counted. And then it asks, is this apartment mobile home? Is it owned by you or someone else? Is this rented? And this is household question number 5. And then of the people living here, who will own the house, apartment, or mobile home? The reason they're asking this question is, say there was a 10-year-old child answering the census form for their household. They want to make sure that they're addressing the parents and not the 10-year-old child when they have any follow-up questions, if that is something that it becomes to be a thing. People questions. So this is step 3. So after the household questions, you can see we have a check mark. That's complete. With the people questions, it's a little bit confusing, but John Smith is now the reference person. We're looking at maybe a different form for another household. So as you can see, John Smith is the reference person. We are unable to delete John off the form since he's answering for the entire household. However, we could remove Jane Smith. We could remove Jim Smith at the bottom as well. So the reference person will start with John. It's going to ask, what is John Smith's sex? Now, this is a self-identifying form, so if somebody does not identify as male or female, they are able to skip this question. It's going to ask, what is John Smith's age and date of birth? So John would enter the month, day, and year that this individual is born. It's going to automatically populate his age in years. However, John has the ability to change that automatically populated age. I don't know why John would want to do that, but that is something he can do. Now, I want to say this was a mandatory question in 2010. We assume at the state that this is also going to be a mandatory question in 2020. The reason I'm saying this is you are not able to skip this question on the online form, so you must answer this to continue. And when I talk about mandatory questions, if an individual only answered mandatory questions, they would be counted for the state of Minnesota, and the resources would come back to the state and their community. The third people question is John Smith Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin? An individual cannot say yes and no. They either need to say no or yes. So, but you are able to check multiple boxes. So as you can see on the screen, John is identifying as Mexican, Mexican American, Chicano, and Puerto Rican. And if you are another Hispanic, Latino, Spanish origin, you can enter additional information below. People question number 4. This is the race question. This was a mandatory question in 2010. If an individual identifies as multiple races, they are not lumped into one race category. So as you can see on this form, if John identified as white and black or African American, he can check both boxes, and it'll show how many individuals identified as both of those races in Minnesota. It's going to ask for additional information in the race category. So as you can see below with the white example, it has German, Irish, English, Italian, goes on for a little bit. If an individual identifies, say, as German white, we can see how many individuals identifies German white in Minnesota. The example I like to give is that in 2010, we had about 3,000 individuals identify as Egyptian in the state of Minnesota. Now, say an individual who is Egyptian does not identify as white, there is a category that says other, and you can type in the ethnicity there at the bottom as well. Now, if an individual does not want to type in additional information, there will be a soft edit. As you can see at the top on the blue bar, it says, please provide a response. If this person does not have an answer, continue to the next page. So we've completed John Smith, which is the reference person, his portion of the census. So we're going to move on to Jane Smith. John does have the ability to go back and edit his questionnaire. Now, the census form online must be answered in one sitting. You cannot go back to the form in a few hours. That's because they want to make sure that the information is protected. If the form is idle for 13 minutes, it will automatically sign out and all of the data will be lost. So, for everyone that is not John Smith, the non-reference person in the household, they will have one additional question, and it's going to ask, how is this person related to the reference person? So in our example, it says, how is Jane Smith related to John Smith? And we can see we have all these categories. There is an other category, and you could type in that information as well. So that is every question now that we have on the 2020 census form online. We're going to proceed to the form submission. So we've clicked John Smith, Jane Smith. If we wanted to add another person, we have that option here. We can go back and edit the form as well. But we're going to go to the final questions. The final questions are asking, does this person live or stay somewhere else than the address you have listed? The reason they're asking this question is so they can deduplicate the data on the back end. So say, for example, a grandparent was counted at an assisted living facility and they were counted at another family member's home. They want to make sure that that grandparent is counted where they live the majority of the year. So say John Smith lived somewhere else than the address listed. It would ask where else does this individual live, and you can check all that apply. You can also check the for another reason box at the bottom and list your answer. That's it. You have the ability to go back and edit the questionnaire. Otherwise, let's go forward and have the submit questionnaire. And so we have a question coming up. So the instructions tab is available with every question, and the instructions are specific to the questions being asked. Yes, that is a great question. The instructions tab is unique to every question being asked. So if you were on the age question and you had wanted more instructions, you would just go click and it would provide more resources on how to answer that question. So now we're at the confirmation page. You have the confirmation number below, an example phone number to call if you wanted to confirm your census form. If you really needed to make edits to your census form, you would need to call that number. You're not going to be able to go back online and edit the form. So once you submit your census form tied to your household address, your form is considered complete and you have answered your 2020 census. You will not be able to go back into the form, put in your address and answer it again because it's already been answered for that household. If you needed to make additional edits after submission, you would want your confirmation number, or you could provide the census with your household address. So I'm going to talk about the group living quarters. This is a slightly different process than the short form that I just showed everyone. So with group living quarters, there are 4 different types of enumeration methods. The 2 enumeration methods on the bottom, paper response data collection and in-person interview, happen for more transient living facilities. So maybe a living facility where individuals staying 1 or 2 nights only, and individuals in these facilities are counted on April 1st. Now, electronic response data transfer, this is common for dormitories, maybe a high need population such as a memory care unit, or it'd be common for jails and prisons go through this enumeration method as well. With electronic response data transfer, this is where the facility manager answers the census form for every individual living in that facility. Then we have the drop-off pickup questionnaire. This may be an aging community where households are answering their census form individually, and so they're going to go through that method. Now, with the electronic response data transfer, the facility manager that is transferring that data over to the Bureau is given the census oath. That means they must protect the data as well and keep it confidential. The key thing for our census partners with group living quarters is between February 3rd and March 6th, the Census Bureau is going to be making advance contact with every group living facility in Minnesota. This advance contact is either going to happen in person or over the phone. During that period, they're going to verify the group quarter information, collect the expected population of that group quarter, and they're going to guide the facility manager through the types of enumeration for group quarters. They're going to work together to choose an enumeration method that works best for the specific need of the living facility. Now, between April 1st and June 5th is when enumeration for group quarters occurs. So if you have any group quarters in your community, I encourage you to reach out in the beginning of March and ensure that the census has contacted them. If the census has not contacted that group quarters, please flag us and let our office know, and we can connect you with somebody from the Bureau to ensure that you are counted and that everyone living in a group quarters facility is counted in the 2020 census. So now I'm going to show an example of the paper-based version of the form. We're going back to the short form again. So there are 4 questions that apply to the entire household on this paper-based version of the form. These are the same questions as the online form. They're just formatted differently because it's on paper. The first question is, how many people were living here, staying in this house on April 1st? Were there additional people staying here on April 1st? Is this a house, apartment, or mobile home? And what is your telephone number? Like I said, they're only asking for your number in case they need to follow up. Now, there are 6 questions asked about each individual living in the household, the same questions as the online form. The questions are name. I should have pointed this out with the online form. You are able to insert a nickname, for example, so it is how you self-identify. No one can tell you how to answer your census form. You choose what name you would like to enter in the form. It's a self-identifying form. So you have name, relationship to person 1, which is the reference person, sex, age and date of birth. I've highlighted this as this was a mandatory question in 2010, and we think this will also be a mandatory question in 2020. Then it asks for Hispanic, Latino ethnicity, and then we have the race question. As you can see here on the paper form, these are all the races listed, and at the bottom you have some other race, and you can print that race or origin in the boxes below. On the online form, you will have 200 character spaces. And the last thing I want to say is there will not be a citizenship question on the 2020 census. Our office is very happy about that. What I'm showing you now is the online portal, and it is also the paper-based version of the form. So I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break here to let everyone ask any questions or use the restroom real quick, and then we'll resume and talk more about how the census specifically impacts our community. So I'm going to take a break now, and we'll come back in 5 minutes. Thank you. Hey, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for that quick break. We have a few questions that popped up on our screen during the break, so I'm going to go ahead and answer those. The first question is, if an individual fills out the paper census form and they don't answer a mandatory question, like the age question, is their response still counted? So with the mandatory questions, it's the same as the online form, except it's paper so you can proceed. If you do not answer the mandatory questions, you will not be counted in the census. Now, if you answer the mandatory questions of age and race, you will be counted in the 2020 census. So that is why we are really encouraging everyone to answer their census form in its entirety. However, if somebody does not feel comfortable, we would like to provide information on what the mandatory questions are, so they are counted in the state of Minnesota, and those resources are coming back to the state and back to their community. So I heard another question that we had come on the screen is, I heard at a different meeting that the census will not be offered in Hmong or Somali. Can you please verify this and or mention it? So yes, we're going to go through our language resources coming up. The census is not available in Hmong or Somali. There are guides, glossaries, and identification cards to help with this process. However, the best thing is if a census worker speaks the language and is from that community, so they can go through the process of the census with that household, and there's not a language barrier. But I will talk about the language component moving forward, and I will show our website where we have various language resources. So continue to ask questions, and I will answer as they show on the screen. So moving forward, I'm going to reiterate again, there is no citizenship question on the 2020 census. I also want to say that there is fear around the census, and this fear impacts some communities more than others. We at the state of Minnesota recognize the fear, and we want to provide as much information to our census partners and to the community members so people can understand how the census can be used as a tool of empowerment. So do I have to answer every question on the census? No, you can submit an incomplete census and still be counted. To be counted, you must answer those mandatory questions. As soon as we have confirmation on those mandatory questions, we will provide that information to you. However, a partially filled out census questionnaire may result in a follow-up phone call or visit from a census worker. It will most likely be a phone call if you listed your number. However, a census worker may come to your door. If you do not want the census to come to your door, then answer the form in its entirety and you have completed your 2020 census form. So language information. The census is given in 12 other languages than English. Spanish is one of them, Chinese, as you can see the languages listed here. So there's 13 languages total. The census will provide guides, glossaries, and identification cards for the following languages below. As you know, in Minnesota, we have a high Somali and Hmong population, and there are guides, glossaries, and identifications to assist with this process. Now the guides. The guides are available in video with captions and print. I'm going to show an example on the next slide. The guide is also available in American Sign Language, Braille, and large print. The English language guide is currently available and it goes through the online census form in 6 minutes. The other languages listed on this slide, they will be available in video guide. I anticipate probably by the end of this month, maybe sooner, and we will provide those resources on our site. There are also census questionnaire assistants, so telecommunication devices for individuals that are deaf or hard of hearing. Now, here's an example of a language identification card. So as the census worker goes to a household and say the household speaks Hmong, this is a way for the household to identify the language spoken there. And then there's a census glossary, which are translations of commonly used census terms. So I have an example of a census glossary from English to Spanish. Now, this is an example of the language guide in print. It's also available in video. This is the English language guide. We also have Somali and Hmong printed language guides. They are on our site. The videos we will post as soon as they are available. But as you can see with the language guide, it directs an individual on how to answer their census form. It is first name, last name, middle initial. It says, please provide information for each individual living here. So it prompts the individual through that process in their language. Now, if you want to identify a Census Bureau staff member, there are 5 key identifiers. The coloring of this badge might be slightly different, but the identifiers are the same. The first is full name of the census worker, photograph of the census worker. This should match the individual that you are speaking with from the Bureau, the Department of Commerce watermark, since this is where the U.S. Census Bureau is housed, expiration date on the badge, and identification number. The key thing here is to note the picture. It matches the individual you're speaking with from the Bureau and the identification number. Now, with the identification number, you can see at number 2, you could call the Chicago Regional Office. You could call this number, tell them the ID number, and verify that census worker. Or you could do a staff search on the website and enter the identification number. I have done the staff search with multiple census partners working across the state of Minnesota, and it has always worked for me. Census workers should also have their badge present at all times. You should be able to see the badge, and census workers will only be working between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Also, when they're out on the field and they have a tablet or a computer, it will have the official Department of Commerce or Census Bureau logo on their device. So who can access the data? The White House cannot access the data. Your landlord cannot access census data. Government entities like ICE or the U.S. court system does not have access to the data. The state of Minnesota, we do not have access to the data. We see the same thing that you will see. Only the U.S. Census Bureau has access to this data. If there is any federal agency that has data, I feel most trusted that it's with the U.S. Census Bureau. Now, that data is also protected for 72 years. If another federal agency requested that data, it is going to be denied because the Census Bureau, by law, must protect the data 72 years. So how does the Census Bureau protect your data online? The Bureau is using an HTTPS address. That S ensures that the data is encrypted. It is encrypted in your computer and encrypted throughout transit when it reaches the Census Bureau servers. Now, to open that data after it reaches the Census Bureau server, there is a unique key that the Bureau must use to open that data. It stays encrypted and protected throughout the milliseconds it is in transit. However, it is using an HTTPS address. Now, there are no fake census websites if it's a .gov. So when we say 2020census.gov, go to that website. That is the official website for the census. .gov domains can also only be used by government entities. Now, the Census Bureau is also using best practices. The Government Accountability Office, which is another federal agency, audited the Census Bureau and looked at their data practices, and they are using top standards for the industry. If anyone is interested, I'm more than happy to share the 2019 report. I want to note as well, on the top of the website throughout the process, there'll be a flag that says, this is an official website of the United States government. Here's how you know. You can click on that tab to verify that you are on the right census website. But if you go to 2020census.gov, you are on the correct site. It should look like this, and it should have that American flag and official website of the U.S. government text at the top. Like I said, the data is protected for 72 years. We want to make sure that we are counted in history. A lot of times I'm reading a book right now and it talks about the census and how some groups have looked at their past and their family lineage using census data. We want to be able to look in the past and be remembered. So you can go back and see who lived in your household 72 years ago. 72 years from now will be 2092. So that is when the data will be released. I don't think I will be around in 2092, but somebody born on April 1st, 2020 will be able to go back and look at their census form and see that they were counted. So who is missed in Minnesota? Young children, people of color, indigenous people, urban and rural low-income households are missed at disproportionately high rates. In Minnesota, these are the groups that are most likely to be missed in the census. We have, according to the data based off the American Community Survey, that's that long form census that happens every 2 years, we have 1.3 million renter households. This is the number one group to be missed, likely to be missed in the census. The second highest group to be missed in the census is individuals 18 to 24, so young adults, and especially young adults or that are attending a college or university. Now, an individual could be a young adult and also a renter, which is very common for people that are 18 to 24. This increases their likelihood of being missed in the 2020 census. Now, some of these numbers might look off to you or low or high, and that's because there's a probability that they are. So when we have wrong data at the state of Minnesota, we aren't creating accurate policies that address the needs of our population. The Census Bureau is the only federal agency that is conducting this level of data. Data is a great thing if it is accurate. There is not another private entity or company that comes in to conduct census data, so this is the only data set that we have available to use. So in Minnesota, our projected likely non-self-response number is 965,000 people. This number is if a Census Bureau worker did not follow up with the household those 6 times. So if there was no follow-up, we are projected to miss 965,000 people in this state. If we miss this many people in the state of Minnesota, we will lose that 8th congressional seat. It's almost 100% guaranteed if we miss that many people. We might see an increase in our property taxes because there's less federal funding coming to the state, therefore less funding trickling down to the counties and cities. So projected undercounts for various areas of Minnesota. As you can see, I've listed a number of counties. Just to say Itasca County, that's 7,607 people that are projected to be missed in that county alone. In Brainerd, a little over 4,000 people are projected to be missed, and this is this non-self response. So if people don't follow up with the household, this is how many people would be missed in these counties or cities. In the follow-up message going to everyone joining us today, I'm going to provide a handout that lists the projected undercounts for every county and every city in Minnesota. So impacts of an undercount. So as a state, we receive $15 billion in federal funding that is tied to census data. That funding comes to the state of Minnesota, and then it trickles down to our counties, into our cities and townships, and all of the communities across the state. If anyone has seen John Oliver, there was a clip where the state of Minnesota was recently featured. It talked about the community Circle Pines. Circle Pines was undercounted by a number of individuals, but they didn't reach the 5,000 person threshold in 2010, and that threshold is needed for highway trunk funds. They were under the 5,000 threshold by 84 individuals. So this year they're making a huge push to have that 5,000 threshold so they can receive those resources. So it affects us across, not only at the state level, but at the community level as well. Decreased representation in Washington, D.C., we are still projected to lose that 8th congressional seat. In 2010, we kept the 8th congressional seat by 8,000 individuals. Decreased growth and resources for your community. If you've ever wondered why certain communities have nicer hospitals or there's a new bus stop going in that neighborhood, they're using census data to determine that. If there's a hospital that's going into an area, that's tied somewhat to census data. I mentioned this earlier, but businesses use census data. So there was recently an Aldi that was added to my neighborhood. I'm thrilled about it, but the Aldi was added because it looks like there is growth in my community. There are various food deserts across the state of Minnesota that could also use grocery stores, and businesses are using census data to determine where they should locate those stores. This is a projection about the congressional seats. As you can see, Minnesota is still, with current projections, going to lose that maybe 8th congressional seat. However, it depends on how everyone else's count goes. I want to say we are lucky to live in a state that values the census and values a complete count. Some states like Texas that are supposed to gain 3 congressional seats are putting $0 towards the census. Wisconsin, our neighbor next door, they're putting $0 for the census. We as a state, we value a complete count, and so we're going to make sure that we have an accurate count, and so we can keep as many congressional seats as possible. You are not meant to read this. This is a program called Counting for Dollars. It lists the 55 federal programs that are funded using census data. There are a variety of programs, and somebody can find a program to connect with anyone in their community. But these numbers and programs are Minnesota specific. So to point out a few for the Counting for Dollars, we have the Rural Rental Assistance Program. As a state, we receive $20 million a year, and that is tied somewhat to census data for this program. Medicaid funding. As a state, we receive $6 billion a year in Medicaid funding connected to census data. State Children's Health Insurance Program, also connected to census data. If there are any K through 12 partners on this call, please let me know if you want more data. There are a number of programs that are funded in our K-12 system using census data. Now, federal transit grants, that's also tied to census data. So if somebody says the census does not connect with my life, you could ask if they took a road today, if that road was paved, if there was a stop sign, then the census impacts their life, because the reason the road was paved and all these things were occurring on our highway systems or roads is because there's federal funding which is connected to the census. So the impact of an undercount will last 10 years. We are not able to redo our census. We would have to wait till 2030 to have a complete count. This would put our state and our counties and cities and townships at a disadvantage because they aren't receiving the resources they deserve for 10 years. So why do you care about obtaining a complete count? Everyone's why is going to be different. I work with students sometimes and they were talking about how their why is tied to Pell Grant funding. Their ability to go to school is on a Pell Grant, and the Pell Grant is tied to census data. So asking why is the census important to you and connecting that why to the various partners or community members that you're working with and talking about the census to. So if you wanted to find your community, you could use the Response Outreach Area Mapper on our website. So I just pulled out a community in Minnesota. As you can see, that dark blue area has a projected undercount of 20 to 29%. Now, even more robust than the Response Outreach Area Mapper on our website is the Response Outreach Area Mapper on the Census Bureau website. I will include a link in our follow-up email, but just so you can see here, I'm going to compare two census tracts. They're both in Freeborn County. So on the left, we have Census Tract 1804. There's a low response score of 13.2. The median household income here is $61,000. And then we have over on the other side, Census Tract 1808. The low response score is 25%, and our median household income decreases to $31,000. So what I'm trying to display with this map is the cycle of poverty. So what happens is when a census tract is undercounted, they are not receiving the resources they deserve. Money is not going to their school system, going to build up infrastructure or bring in new business. It's going to the Census Tract 1804 because it looks like there are more people living there. So we want to make sure that we have an equitable distribution of resources across the state of Minnesota. Everyone is paying into the system and they deserve to have the resources coming back to their community. So when a community is not counted in the 2020 census, they remain invisible in the data set and they do not receive the resources that they deserve. So preventing an undercount. Before moving forward, I'd want to note, please continue to ask any questions. I'm happy to answer them as they come through. So preventing an undercount, what we're doing in the state of Minnesota is partnerships. Specifically, we're focusing on the complete count committees or any of our other partners. Now, complete count committees are activists, community organizations, local government entities that play a role in the 2020 census. I think right now we have 176 complete count committees across the state of Minnesota. They are all listed on our website. On our website, it lists the person leading the complete count committee, their email address, and their phone number and their name. So if you want to find a complete count committee in your community, feel free to go to our map and find that information and see who's working on the census in your county, city, or township. So tools to prevent an undercount. So we are offering 7 different tools to help with this process. I'm going to go through each tool individually. As you can see, there's an asterisk next to number 1, digital engagement. Digital engagement is required for any of our complete count committees. So digital engagement is a vague term. It can be sending an email, a mass text message, anything that is online and engages the community, social media accounts. I want to go back one more slide. If you are interested in forming a complete count committee, it is a very simple process. We have a template, a letter template that you can use. You would send that template to myself and to the Chicago regional office for the census. And then you would be a complete count committee and we would provide more resources to you. I will show everyone on the website where this information can be found. So moving forward with our tools process. The first one we have is commit to be counted. This is similar to a commit to vote. It's a way to collect digital information to people that you have talked to about the census and then send a reminder message with the intent for outreach. So this is just a way to collect information and then send reminder messages about the census. The way it works is you can embed the C2BC form on your website. It's a unique embedded link for each partner. And then the State Demographic Center, that is us, that is where I work, will follow up with your complete count committee to provide contact information for the individuals that committed to be counted under your form. And then we'll also release a communication strategy so you can contact these people moving forward. And this is for all of our complete count committees and our partners as well. I want to say with number 3, those communication messages, all of our partners will be receiving that. So if you are not using Commit to be Counted, that is fine. You will receive sample communication messages as well. Our next tool is a community motivator tool. This is a way to mass communicate with your constituents or partners. So the way it works is you would load names into an Excel sheet and load it on the back end of a website. And then we would send at the State Demographic Center a welcome message coming from your group or partner, whatever that may be. So for example, if United Way uploaded a list of people with names and numbers, on the back end it would say, hey, United Way would like to provide limited updates about the census. To opt in, say yes or no. If you said yes, then you'd be on that list and United Way would provide updates moving forward. It's a broad text service. And the way it's working is we want the message to come from a trusted partner and not just from the state of Minnesota. So that follow-up happens from United Way and not Minnesota. The state of Minnesota is asking you to commit to the census. This is kind of connected to the commit to be counted form. So if you wanted to build a list or a database of names and numbers, you could use C2BC. And you would upload that into an Excel file on the back end of a website, and then we would send out that welcome message. We also have our help desk, which is available in Hmong, Somali, and Spanish. All answers on the help desk remain anonymous. We are not releasing information about who asked the question. We don't even keep that information. So if you would like to ask a question, I encourage everyone to take out their phone and text 662020. So that's MN 2020. If you text that number, you could ask a question about the census. So as you can see, I asked, when does the census take place? On the right, and it says the 2020 census takes place between March 2020 and July 2020. It'll then say, did this answer your question, yes or no? If it does not answer your question, that's fine. Our office will follow up within 24 hours. Now, if you text your question in Hmong or Spanish, it is going to come back in that language as well. With Somali, I'll share that information. There is a longer phone number for that help desk tool, which I will share with our partners too. But this help desk is available now, and you can go online and ask your question. You are also able to embed this help desk on your own website in case you wanted to direct people to this location to ask a question about the census. So communication support. Our office is going to be providing regular email updates with sample messaging around specific census themes. These emails will include social media messages, translated documents, any newsletter content, news clips. Upcoming themes right now are going to be with jobs in the Bureau. They're still hiring till the end of February, outreach to apartments, and Census Day events. Those are just some examples. The goal with this communication support is you could just copy and paste the message and use it on your own platform. So content. I'm going to go through the website after this, but I'll show an example here. This is the various content located on our website. We have handouts. We've translated a limited number of handouts into Hmong, Somali, and Spanish. They are all accessible. So as you can see on the right, this is our Counting for Dollars handout in Spanish. We also have the Census 101 handout. That is the English version as well. We have logos. These are unlocked logos. So you could say, we count Olmsted County instead of we count Minnesota. Another way to localize the census operations. If you need assistance changing the logo, please let us know and we can help you out. Social media, we have Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. All of our social media handles are MN2020 Census, and the hashtag we are using is WeCountMN. So if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and follow our accounts. Census materials. You can purchase We Count t-shirts, buttons, stickers, tote bags, anything you can think of through our website. If you're a complete count committee and you received funding, you could use your grant funding to purchase various census materials. All of these materials can be changed, so you could say We Count Duluth instead of We Count Minnesota. I want to talk about questionnaire assistance centers. Questionnaire assistance centers are locations across the state where people can go to access their census form online or bring in their paper-based version of the form and receive assistance with the census. So we've been asking all of our public libraries in Minnesota to serve as questionnaire assistance centers. Currently, we have about 174 public libraries signed up. We have 355 public libraries across the state. So I encourage you, if your library hasn't done so already, to form a QAC. If you are a QAC, it is a very easy process. The only thing you need to do is attend an online or in-person training. The online training is posted on YouTube, so you can access it at any time. And then you also need to prepare for increased internet use during the census. So on our website right now, we have a table listing all of the QACs in Minnesota. This table will have additional information as we move closer to the census. The information will list the hours of operation for each QAC, the languages served, and if they serve anyone in the disability community. Then I want to say one size does not fit all. All of these tools, it's a menu of options. You know your community best. Choose the tool that works best for you. Now, jobs with the census. We still need to hire a large number of Minnesotans across the state. So non-U.S. citizens can apply for positions. You must be available to work flexible. You can be available to work flexible hours. You choose the hours. It's at a minimum between 5 and 10 hours a week. And you can work weekends, during the day, evenings. If you would like to apply, they are accepting applications until the end of February. So if you want to apply, 2020census.gov/jobs. The pay scale has increased across the state, and I'm going to show our hiring goals for Minnesota later on in this presentation. If you would like to check your application status, I've listed the number below. You're going to select option 3 and enter your zip code. This is a slide, so the census is this has changed. They're still recruiting for census takers until the end of February, and they're making job offers now. Census taker training will happen in March and April, and this is a paid training. Apartments. If you are a city or county, I encourage you to consider passing a city or county ordinance that says that census workers must receive access to an apartment building, and that an apartment owner must tell residents that the census is coming. We see this as an information and access campaign. The goal of this is to ensure that census workers do not have to sneak into an apartment building and that all residents know that the census is here. It's another way to decrease individuals' fear so they know why there's a federal employee in their building, and also promote the census. So you can use existing language from the city of Edina was the first one to pass this ordinance. Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center just passed another ordinance. I'm going to share these ordinances with you and really encourage you to pass one as well. There's already a federal statute that says census workers must receive access to an apartment building. However, we want to strengthen that federal statute by making city and county ordinances as well. And I'm going to say we are not meant to know everything. There are going to be questions that come up. So I really encourage you to continue to reach out to our office, and we are going to try to help as best possible. I want to say I'm not done with the presentation. I have a few other things I'm going to cover, and I'm going to go through our website as well. So follow up from the state. My name is Rachel Dame. This is my email address. All handouts and information from today are located in our document library, which I'm going to show everyone. And if you haven't done so already, please join our third Thursday calls. This is a way to receive regular updates about the census and understand what the state of Minnesota is doing around the census. If you're not able to join on a third Thursday call, no problem. We record the calls and can share them with you afterwards. So I'm going to move forward and show everyone some of our tools on the website. So this is the state of Minnesota 2020 census website. minnesota.gov/admin/2020-census. Down here we have our Helpdesk tool. This logo is going to be slightly bigger. We just need to change the code block. But if you type in, we could say, when is the census? And then it tells us when the census takes place. We could continue on. Did that answer your question? Yes or no? And we could move forward in the process. If it did not answer a question, if you texted it, it would follow up with your phone number 24 hours later. Online, it doesn't have the ability to follow up. However, it would direct somebody to the FAQ page. That's the help desk, which can be embedded on your website, or you can text 662020 to ask a question. Now this is our home page. If you wanted to work for the census, you can find more information here. The pay is between $16 and $27.50 an hour right now. Grant opportunities. All of the grant opportunities are listed on our page. We still have a number of mini grants available. That's at $750 right there. To receive a mini grant, you must form a CCC. If you wanted to do that, you'd go to Complete Count Committees, start a Complete Count Committee, and it gives you the steps. And there's an example letter which you could download and just use as a template. And it guides you who to email this Complete Count Committee letter to. And after that, you have formed a CCC and you are eligible to apply for that $750 mini grant. If you wanted to find a Complete Count Committee, you go to our Find page and you can see all of the Complete Count Committees across the state. You could click on one. So we have Winona, the individual leading that. And then we have the table with every Complete Count Committee listed. You can also search there as well. Then we have, I want to talk about the Questionnaire Assistance Centers. The Questionnaire Assistance Center is going to have a map similar to our Complete Count Committees, but we have the table listing all of the QACs currently. If you would like to register as a QAC, please click here for the registration form. I will say, you don't need to be a public library to be a QAC. You just need to have access to the internet and train staff so they can understand the census and help people as they come in with questions. And that training is given online. And then events. So we list any of our events here. So join our conference call by computer. This is that third Thursday call. And then we had some Complete Count Committee trainings. Next up, we have our Questionnaire Assistance Center in-person trainings. I will be in Duluth and Detroit Lakes next Monday and Tuesday. And then I'll be in Mankato on February 11th, if you would like to attend any of those events. And then find tools and resources. I think this is going to be very helpful for everyone. Here you can see our document library. So we have information materials, Census 101, why we ask fact sheet, what to expect letters and forms. We have the sample copy of the 2020 Census Invitation, the sample questionnaire in English, a variety of resources, confidentiality and security. We also have language resources. So Spanish, we have a lot of Spanish resources, Hmong, and we have Somali as well. And so I'm just going to pull up the Somali guide as an example. So this is what the guide looks like in Somali. This is the printed version, not the video. As you can see, it provides a variety of instructions, and then it walks the individual through each question. So it has question 1, which is in English, and then it lists the information in Somali and how to answer that question. So there you go. Scroll to the top. Census Jobs, we are still recruiting. So all the job information there. And then we have stuff for specific communities. So older adults, snowbirds, native and tribal residents, immigrants, new Americans, young children, school-age children, people with disabilities, rural residents, college students. Scrolling pretty quickly, but you can see we have a variety of stuff. And then for our partners, which is everyone here. So libraries, Complete Count Committees, faith leaders, schools. The document library is continually updated, so please go here to look for any resources. We have our We Count MN store, which will lead you there. And then we have our videos. So there's a variety of videos that are posted on our website. We have videos coming out in Somali, Hmong, and Spanish, which will be posted to our site as well. If you wanted to contact us. So I'm going to go talk about, we've mentioned recruiting in the census. Before I move forward, we're moving towards the end of the presentation. So I really want to ask people to continue to ask questions. If there's any lingering questions, let me know and I will ask them. So recruiting goals, this is with the state of Minnesota. Oh no, it's gone out. Let's see. There we go. I will collect. Go to Minnesota. As you can see, the recruiting goals. So here in Cass County, 37% of the goals achieved. The pay is $19 per hour. Let's look here. Wadena County, 66% of the goals achieved, $19 per hour as well. So you can see where you are with your recruiting goal and what the pay is. Great job, Carlton County. You're at 87% goal achieved, and the pay is $24 an hour there. Now, if you wanted to see where invitations to respond online or paper-based versions are going to go, we just had a question come through. Where do you find the documents from today? There's going to be a follow-up message with a link to the recording of this video. I'm going to also share, that'll have the PowerPoint in that message as well. And then I will share these links to within the message. So the PowerPoint will go out. So that's all of the documents from today. And then any document I talked about can be found in our document library. I also want to say under the For Partners tab, we have our We Count Minnesota Complete Count Committee training. So this PowerPoint is already up there, posted if you would like to go and access it even sooner. And then, so we're looking at the map, so where people are going to receive an invitation to respond online or a paper-based version initially. So internet first is the purple. So as you can see, let me zoom in. And then green is paper-based versions of the form. So you can go and find your county or city or community and see in Becker County, some people are going to receive an internet choice, so a paper-based version of the form initially, while other areas are going to receive an invitation to respond online. So I will share this link with you, but it might be helpful for you to figure out where are those invitations going out to. So that is all the information I have today for everyone. I'm going to go back to our website. Are there any? I'll stay here for another minute or so and wait for any remaining questions. I also want to say if anyone would like to follow up via email, that is something we can do as well, and we can answer those questions as they come through. I'm more than happy to have one of our coworkers schedule individual calls as well if you want to discuss something in greater detail. So we'll give it about one more minute and then we'll head off. Okay, so we have a question. How do we acquire emails, addresses, etc.? Are those provided? I think you're talking about the Commit to Be Counted form. We would not, the state of Minnesota does not collect emails or addresses, and we wouldn't, if we did, we wouldn't share that information. But if you're using Commit to Be Counted, which is that digital tool, and you're using the embed link, we are going to share that information with you via an Excel file. And that will be coming directly from our office to the person that's the contact name on the Commit to Be Counted form. I'm not sure if that's answering your question, so if you wanted to rephrase it, feel free to type the question in again, and I can make sure that I answered that correctly. I will say, too, with the state of Minnesota, we have obtained the voter registration file, so that is 3.5 million numbers. We need to clean up the data, but about 3.5 million people, they just cleaned up. Over 1 million people will be receiving a message about the census from the state. So where on the website can you track real-time response rates by the census tract? Great question. We are going to post that on our website. I'm not sure where it will be posted yet. It will be flagged very predominantly on the site, so I assume it'd be up here or on our homepage. But that will be posted. The census hasn't started yet, so we do not know the response rates. But as soon as that is available, we will either provide a link or post the map with that. And that information is coming back from the Bureau. And since the census is given online this year, it will be more real-time response rates. And just to give you an example, sign up to get involved here. I can show you what, yes, I commit to be counted. This is what it looks like if you embed the form on your site. Going back here. So we'll wait for any more questions to come through. I wanted to make another plug for Community Motivator, which we will be providing updates on that. It is a mass texting tool that is free for our partners. So if you wanted to mass text anyone, if you provide us with the list, we will send out the message at no cost to you. So somebody had a question. I didn't get the answer last week, but can we share the text address for MN 2020 and have residents sign up for the text message alerts on their own? I'm thinking a Facebook post. So yes, you please share the text address MN 2020. It will prompt, I will provide the key to you, but there is a word that will prompt the individual to say, would you like to receive updates about the census? And if the individual says yes, then they will receive updates. So yes, please send out that text address MN 2020, and you can have residents sign up for text message alerts. Our goal is to have the message coming from a partner instead of just from the state of Minnesota, but that is different for every group. So if it's easier for you to promote it that way, feel free to do so. And then how long does it take to get items? We have another question. How long does it take to get items delivered from the census store? We say about 2 weeks for have the items come to your business or place of work. And as you can see, the We Count MN store right there. I'm just going to show everyone as we have more questions coming through. The We Count MN store. We have some pretty cool products. So you have mobile power bank stickers. I love these signs right there. Mugs. So a lot of stuff, and you can order them in bulk. A deluxe retractable floor sign if you wanted that. So where's the site to see census job numbers that you just showed? That was the next question we have coming through. So I'm going to share this in an email because it is a long site, but what I can do is I can copy this, and I think I can post an answer. I can post an answer here. So for that individual that just asked that question, I provided the link for you in the chat box, but I will also share this link with everyone in the follow-up email. So do you have the link if residents want to complete their census information online? The census link, if residents want to complete it online, is not live yet. It'll be live on March 12th. And if you direct people to 2020census.gov, they can find the link to respond online. And that will be available March 12th. So we still have some time before the link is live. So I'll just, I'm going to write that answer in there for you, 2020census.gov. Perfect. And I think this map is very helpful for people to see where the hiring is at. Dodge County, I want to point out, great, again, 85% goal achieved, and the pay is $18 an hour there. Great, so please continue to ask questions as they come about, and we'll wait a little bit longer. I talked about earlier the videos, so there will be videos in Spanish, Somali, and Hmong. One of the videos is a transcreation video, so what that means is it's a cartoon, and then it is given in Somali or Hmong in Spanish, and it talks about the census. There's video about a family and why the census is important to a Hmong family. We have that for a Spanish family and a Somali family as well. You can see we have our Lieutenant Governor featured in one of our Census 101 videos. Great. So if there are no more questions, this concludes the presentation today. I want to say thank you to everyone that joined. Oh, we have another question coming through. Great. Which county did you just announce had reached 85%? Your voice comes and goes. Sorry about that. The county that has 85% is Dodge County. So Dodge County received the 85% goal. Any other questions? All right. If you have any questions, please let me know via email and we'll respond that way. Otherwise, thank you for joining us. We will send a follow-up message with this slideshow, as well as any of the resources I talked about. And this presentation is recorded. So thank you and have a good day, everyone.